You thought I wouldn't do a non-Gen 1 Pokemon? I told you I would cover anything voted, and now we have Scizor, the metal-coated evolved form of Scyther and one of the coolest Pokemon in existence. Anyway, I'm sure a lot of you think Scizor is pretty cool, but how good was it actually in competitive play? Let's find out. Well, honestly, I think you know the answer. Also, as a side note, I am not covering Scyther in this video because even though Scyther is a pre-evolved form, it is kinda different from Scizor and it deserves its own video, at least in my opinion. But hey, that just means we have our first solo Gen 2 Pokemon in the video and first bug and steel type, so hooray. Scizor's debut in Gen 2 was met with a lot of fanfare as it and the steel type in general quickly rose in usage on several teams despite losing points in speed when evolving from Scyther. Unfortunately though, as with most metagames, when something becomes too commonplace, people will start bringing things to counter it. Since one of the things steel Pokemon are weak to is fire moves on Pokemon for coverage became more prominent, which is very unfortunate for Scizor, considering it has a 4 times weakness to it. It also doesn't help that its best stab moves at the time are Hidden Power Bug and Steel Wing. However, lucky for Scizor, it's got some great setup moves like Agility and of course, Sword Dance. And honestly, when I think of Sword Dance, I almost always think of Scizor. But we can talk about that later. It can power itself up, and if it runs into something that it can't really hurt, like say a fire type, then it can baton pass its power-ups to something else. However, if you didn't want a support type Scizor though, you could always attack with it behind a sub, but like I said earlier, fire types are a thing, such as Arcanine, Moltres, and Houndoom, and also other steel types like Skarmory, Steelix, and Fortress, who could just tank most of Scizor's hits. Suicune could also just tank its hits and roar it away, getting rid of the boost. Because of these setbacks, and probably because Heracross did more damage thanks to having a much better stab move, Scizor wasn't used as much with the top tiers, but still saw a decent amount. Not bad, but not great. Gen 3 was kinda the same case for Scizor. Stat and typing wise, it has all the makings of a top tier Pokemon. However, its attacking moves are very lackluster. Instead of Hidden Power Bug for its stab, it now has Silver Wind. Yep, Silver Wind. And with the introduction of abilities, all it got was Swarm. Although this means it could get an occasional power boost and it can KO psychic types like Alakazam, anything defensive will stop Scizor in its tracks. If it can get a boost from something like Sword Dance, Hidden Power Rock can take out Salamence and other flying type threats. Again, it can baton pass and even use a reversal or choice band set to maximize damage. Unfortunately, it is still taken out by defensive phasers like Skarmory and Suicune, and of course, fire type attacks. All of this puts Scizor in borderline, where it is too good for underuse but not good enough to be overused. And like I said, in terms of the overall idea of using Scizor from Gen 2, there really wasn't that much change for Gen 3. Well, that's okay, because in Gen 4, Scizor finally got to put its low power stab moves to good use thanks to the ability Technician, which will increase any move with 60 power or less by 50%. Thanks to its typing, it has 10 resistances and only 1 weakness, though it is a 4x1. Because of all these benefits, Scizor could fulfill quite a bit of roles on a team, most notably revenge killing, scouting with the move U-turn, and of course, sweeping. During this generation, there are a lot of sets Scizor could use, ranging from Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Baton Pass, and Sword Dance. And speaking of Sword Dance, I'd like to tell a little short story. The reason why I imagine Scizor every time I think of Sword Dance is because the first Pokemon to pull off a sweep against me when I was first starting to learn competitive Pokemon back in Gen 4 was Scizor, using a combination of Sword Dance and the move Bullet Punch. Bullet Punch is a base 40 move which is boosted to 60 with Technician. That is basically a steel version of Quick Attack. This allows Scizor to power up with moves like Sword Dance and go first against many Pokemon. And with the obligatory Stealth Rock support running around everywhere this generation, it can take out several Pokemon, using combinations with its sets. For example, for the Choice Band set, Scizor does a massive amount of damage thanks to a 75 base power bug stab move U-turn, and its massive 130 base attack stat to go with the Choice Band. U-turn with Stealth Rock allows it to do massive damage and keep switch advantage. And fun fact, an adamant-natured Scizor with max attack and a choice band comes out to a total attack stat of 591. And if that's not enough, even if something like Heatran or Magnezone resists its stabs thanks to its steel, fire, or electric typing, Scizor can use moves like Superpower and Brick Break to take them out. It could also trap ghost types like Gengar and all of the Rotom forms for a revenge kill thanks to the move Pursuit. And it even gets a stab bug move for a Technician in the form of Bug Bite, which can eliminate even bulky water types like Swampert, Suicune, and Vaporeon after a Sword Dance. There's even a set that it could utilize as a niche in Ubers, but this video is about standard play and I won't be going over it, but I just thought I'd mention it. And from all this, we know that Scizor is really freaking good. But even after all this, Scizor still has bad matchups depending on what set it's running. Things like all of the Rotoms if it doesn't carry Pursuit. Gyarados and Zapdos are the best Pokemon to switch in on Scizor because they both resist its best moves, and Gyarados can intimidate it and set up in its face and take it out, and Zapdos can use Heat Wave to exploit its 4x fire weakness. As mentioned before, Heatran and Magnezone resisted stabs but must watch out for fighting types. And physical walls like Gliscor, Hippowdon, and Skarmory can also take hits from it, but must beware of the Sword Dance Scizor. But aside from Gyarados and Zapdos, if you're gonna take out a Scizor, you really need to know what moves it's running, or else it might just steamroll you. And thanks to all this, during the 4th generation, Scizor was placed comfortably in the overused. For Gen 5, as far as sets go, Scizor did not stray very far from its usual sets like in Gen 4. It even made use of the move Acrobatics as far as differences go. Though I won't repeat myself in how the sets are used, as it can still take out many Pokemon, I will touch upon some different threats it can take down. Pokemon like Kyurem Black, Dragonite, Terrakion, and Salamence can be revenge killed with Bullet Punch. And the move Pursuit can trap prominent Psychic and Ghost types like the Latias and Gengar. However, though it didn't take any sand damage, it didn't appreciate many water types being used against it, which were a lot more common thanks to rain being a thing. And this is because most water types resist Bullet Punch and could hit him back with a lot of power boosted in the rain. Also, if the Scizor is banded, Pokemon like Skarmory, Fortress, Jellicent, and Landorus T wall the banded set pretty easily. However, against some of these Pokemon, Sword Dance Acrobatics manages to do a significant amount of damage. Though I said it didn't appreciate rain teams being used against it, if run as a bulky Sword Dancer, it appreciates the weakened fire type attacks that the rain provided if you are running a rain team with it. However, with the advent of a new generation and new mechanics, more checks pop up, like Tentacruel and Keldeo in addition to Gyarados from before. And of course, thanks to the Weather Wars, many fire Pokemon became more prominent on Sun teams, and a good number of fire Pokemon on Sun teams all check Scizor very well, because of their resistances to stab moves and of course their ability to incinerate it in its one weakness. But despite this though, Scizor remained in overuse because it just hit so many things for a lot of damage. Over on the VGC side of things, the fact that Scizor could resist 10 different types sure came in handy, as it served its role as a great priority attacker, and usually a bulky one too. It has one of the strongest priority moves in Bullet Punch thanks to Technician, and utilized Bug Bite to destroy psychic types that were really common in VGC such as Cresselia and Latios, as well as Pokemon like Ludicolo and Abomasnow. Since Bug Bite also eats berries, it could steal the berries of various Pokemon and gain their effects. And of course, it could utilize Sword Dance to power itself up to do more damage. Scizor was used by top cut players and masters during 2013 in both seniors and juniors finals. However, Scizor has a hard time versus fire types like Ninetales who summons the sun, Heatran and Chandelure, as well as bulky water types like Jellicent who could scald Scizor to lower its attack. Speaking of which, Intimidate users such as Arcanine, Salamence, Gyarados, and Hitmontop also gave it trouble. Scizor also particularly had a hard time with Zapdos once again, as it resists most of its standards moves and hit it with Heat Wave for a KO. Though Scizor was checked by a lot more Pokemon in VGC, it was still used a decent amount by various players. And now, if you thought things couldn't get any better for Scizor, you would be wrong, as Gen 6 granted Scizor with a Mega Form. Mega Scizor boasted a base 150 attack stat as well as an increase in all of its other stats besides HP, most notably its defense stat to 140. Mega Scizor became one of the best setup sweepers in overuse thanks to its additional bulk and ability to threaten various top Pokemon with Bullet Punch, such as Clefable, Tyranitar, Terrakion, Kyurem Black, Mega Diancie, and others. The move Bug Bite could also be used to beat grass and water types such as Amoonguss, Tangrowth, Rotom Wash, and Slowbro. Other Pokemon, especially Dragon Pokemon, better be carrying fire type coverage or they will be having a lot of trouble taking Scizor out thanks to its boosted bulk. As always, Sword Dance allowed Mega Scizor to boost its attack to absurd levels. It also preferred Roost this time around, considering you probably want to keep your only Mega alive and also make sure it can switch in on threats more effectively. Also, Mega Scizor retains its Technician ability, which means having regular Scizor with even the ability Light Metal before it Mega Evolves is a good idea to maximize defenses versus Weavile's low kick. Though if Light Metal is too strange for you and you would rather use another Mega, regular Scizor was still great as well, though not having Mega Scizor sacrifices the extra attack and bulk. And of course, it could Pursuit Trap just like in the other generations. However, both versions of Scizor were weak to, of course, fire types and fire type attacks. And this time around, there's a lot more, like with Mega Charizard X and Y, Heatran, and Talonflame. Also, Electric types did very well against it, especially Magnezone, who in particular could trap Scizor thanks to Magnapole and destroy it with Hidden Power Fire. Basically, anything physically defensive that could cripple Scizor's attack or resist its priority Bullet Punch could stop Scizor, but its damage output and sustainability still could not be denied, and both versions of Scizor stayed in overuse. In Gen 6 VGC, though Scizor only has 8 resistances this time, as opposed to the 10 since Steel types got nerfed, it was still used quite a bit as regular Scizor and as a Mega. Just like in singles, both forms of Scizor could work as their sets are pretty much identical. Basically, if you wanted to use a different Mega instead, you could just use a different item on your Scizor like the Lumberry instead of the Mega Stone. Since Burn is a lot more common in Gen 6 VGC, Scizor could definitely use the Lumberry. However, unfortunately, Bug Bite was not available until Oraz was out, so Scizor, at least in the beginning, had to use X-Scissor. It once again served the role of a tank with priority attacks. However, thanks to the nerf to Steel types, other Pokemon such as Bisharp and Mega Mawile may have been picked over Scizor, as they both had priority with the added bonus of resisting dark moves. Though both Scizors saw a decent amount of usage, Intimidate, Will-O-Wisp, Rotom Wash, Gyarados, Mega Manectric, and a load of other things running around VGC could cripple Scizor by either lowering its attack or hitting it with fire moves, so one has to consider that when deciding on Scizor. But like I've been saying throughout this entire video, the pros of Scizor definitely outweighed the cons, and it was still used a decent amount in Gen 6 VGC. And that's it. So how good was Scizor actually? Scizor was great. Even though it didn't start out top tier due to lacking good stab moves, it was still too good for some lower tiers, and once it got its ability Technician and more moves, it could finally abuse its attack power and its resistances to fulfill a number of roles in singles. As for doubles, it became a decent bulky attacker in VGC. It even got a Mega form despite it already being pretty good, and because of that, I don't think Scizor will drop in usage anytime soon. But anything can happen really, so you never know. Thanks for watching, everyone. Now before we sign out, I want to take the time to thank our patrons for supporting the production of these videos. Thank you to all the Patreon contributors so far. And of course, I encourage you to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And of course, comment on which Pokemon you want to see next. Also follow my crew on these social media platforms. Alright, that's all I got. Have a nice day, everyone.